evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. A fugitive warrant has been issued for the parents of the accused Michigan school shooter. Authorities are still searching for the couple after they were charged with involuntary manslaughter earlier today. Parents in the U.S. are rarely charged in school shootings involving their children. Why was this case different? And will it set a precedent for future prosecutions? The CDC is putting in place new travel rules for international visitors in response to the Omicron variant. All air travelers must show a negative virus test 1 day before arriving in the U.S. Crime's rising in New York. Is it so bad that one of the country's biggest banks is encouraging workers to dress down? Our reporter investigates. California's Attorney General sentenced 5 people involved in a multi-million-dollar retail theft scheme. Another jewelry store in California was robbed and the thieves got away. A fugitive warrant has been issued for the parents of the accused Michigan high school shooter. That's after they were charged this morning with involuntary manslaughter. Attorneys working with the couple say they're returning to the area to be arraigned, but the authorities say they're still not in custody. NTD's Chenny Wu tells us more.
Authorities are searching for the missing parents of Ethan Crumbley, the Michigan teenager accused of murdering 4 students at his high school. The Oakland County Sheriff's Department is working with the FBI and U.S. Marshal Service to find them. James and Jennifer Crumbley were charged earlier on Friday with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. But 2 attorneys working with the Crumbleys said the couple aren't fleeing. In a statement, attorneys Shannon Smith and Merrill Lehman wrote, "On Thursday night, we contacted the Oakland County prosecutor to discuss this matter and to advise her that James and Jennifer Crumbley would be turning themselves in to be arraigned. Instead of communicating with us, the prosecutor held a press conference to announce charges. The Crumbleys left town on the night of the tragic shooting for their own safety. They are returning to the area to be arraigned. They are not fleeing from law enforcement, despite recent comments and media reports." When Oakland County prosecutor Karen McDonald announced the charges, she said the parents committed egregious acts, including buying a gun and making it available to Ethan. Further investigation hinted that the weapon may have been a Christmas gift.
Gun ownership is a right, and with that right comes great responsibility. Based on the information and evidence I have received, today I am announcing charges against the shooter's parents.
Under Michigan law, charges can be pursued if prosecutors believe someone contributed to a situation where harm or death was high. If convicted, it could mean up to 15 years in prison. The parents also allegedly failed to intervene when they were summoned to the school on the day of the shooting. School officials showed them a drawing of a gun, a person bleeding, and the words "help me" found on the teen's desk. They went home without their son. The prosecutor said Ethan should not have been allowed to return to class. According to police, later that day, Ethan allegedly emerged from a bathroom with a gun and began firing at students in the hallway. 4 students were killed and 7 more people were injured. Ethan has been charged as an adult with 24 crimes, including murder, attempted murder, and terrorism. Police say Crumbley's attack was likely premeditated. What's more, the sheriff's office says more than 100 copycat threats have emerged since the shooting.
What it's doing is it's really aggravating the raw nerves and emotions of every student, every parent, every teacher in the whole region, completely unnecessarily. So the school shut down out of an abundance of caution, why we and our partners check all these threats out.
Several arrests have been made, but the majority of the claims are believed to be baseless. Chenny Wu, NTD News.
And in an interview with MSNBC, Sheriff Michael Bouchard said he didn't know that charges were going to be filed against James and Jennifer Crumbley until he heard about it in the media. When asked if he was frustrated that he was not given notice, the sheriff said that's an understatement. And the CDC is putting in place new travel rules for international visitors. Starting Monday, all air travelers must show a negative virus test 1 day before arriving in the U.S., even if they're vaccinated. The CDC says this is in response to the Omicron variant. NTD's Allison Lee has the details.
Right now, fully vaccinated visitors to the U.S. have to show a negative virus test within 3 days of arrival. Starting Monday, that period is reduced to 1 day. The CDC says it's because they don't yet know whether the vaccine can protect against the Omicron variant.
Our CDC laboratories are working in collaboration with public health and academic partners and across agencies to understand the science of this new variant, assessing its susceptibility to therapeutics and vaccines.
The CDC and White House health officials say they are still trying to figure out more about the Omicron variant, but their recommendations for protecting against COVID-19 remain the same regardless of the variant.
I know that the news is focused on Omicron, but we should remember that 99.9% of cases in the country right now are from the Delta variant. Delta continues to drive cases across the country.
Right now, South Africa is looking at differences in protection and severity of disease in people who are either vaccinated, unvaccinated, or have had prior infection. White House health officials expect more information on Omicron to come out in the next few weeks.
That's all going to take a matter of maybe a week or two more to get the in vitro data and maybe another additional week or so to get the clinical data. So we expect we're going to have that information to you over the next few weeks.
A study came out from South Africa on Thursday saying there's a rise in reinfections among people who've already had COVID, now that Omicron has been spreading. This study is preliminary and not yet peer-reviewed. The World Health Organization reacts.
It's limited information so far in its early analysis, but what it's showing is that there is a risk of reinfection. Now, these are mainly, we don't have the vaccination status of those individuals, or it hasn't been reported in that paper.
South Africa reported on Friday around 16,000 new cases of COVID-19. This means the country surpassed 3 million cases since the start of the pandemic. The WHO says they haven't seen an increase in risk of death yet. Allison Lee, NTD News.
And 5 more states today reported their first Omicron cases. They are Missouri, Utah, Nebraska, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. 10 states currently have the new variant, including California, Colorado, Hawaii, Minnesota, and New York. And President Biden today signed into law a government funding extension. It's Congress's second temporary fix and averts a government shutdown only until February. Congress needs to pass a full-year funding bill to end the government shutdown saga, and Biden urged the lawmakers to do so.
And I want to urge Congress to use the time this bill provides to work toward a bipartisan agreement on a full-year funding bill that makes the needed investments in our economy and our people, from public health to education to national security.
Last night, the bill was held up in the Senate due to Republican pushback. Some GOP lawmakers tried to use the urgent need to pass this bill to defund Biden's federal vaccine mandate.
It's not government's job. It's not within government's authority to tell people that they must be vaccinated. And if they don't get vaccinated, they'll get fired. It's wrong. It's immoral.
But their efforts to stop the vaccine and testing mandate failed, and the government funding bill passed alone. The short-term funding lasts until mid-February. Then Congress will have to take up the issue again. Congress is backed up on a number of crucial deadlines. The debt ceiling must be raised by mid-December to avoid a default. Party leaders Schumer and McConnell are negotiating on a debt ceiling increase, but they haven't made public where those negotiations stand right now.
That's our goal.
And it's looking less likely that the Senate can meet Schumer's Christmas deadline to pass Biden's Build Back Better bill, the social welfare and climate spending bill. That vote may be pushed into the new year. Another urgent deadline, the National Defense Bill to fund the Pentagon, is still stalled. Senator Marco Rubio wanted to add an amendment to ban imports from the Xinjiang region, an area where forced labor and genocide of religious and ethnic minorities is happening.
Good morning, everyone.
Speaker Pelosi supported Rubio's efforts to champion human rights. The House is preparing to vote next week on a separate bill to target human rights abuses in China. House Rules Committee Chairman Jim McGovern, who spearheaded the bill, said Congress members think it's important to move some China legislation, hopefully much of it focused on human rights, in the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
A recount in one Virginia district reaffirms Republicans' majority in the state House. This means the GOP flipped the Virginia State House and all 3 statewide offices in last month's election. The certified results of the election show Republicans won 52 districts and Democrats won 48 districts. Democrats requested recounts in 2 districts with razor-thin margins. The Democratic candidate in the 85th district gained 12 votes in the recount, but was still behind by over 100 votes. A second recount in the 91st district is still expected to proceed next week, but the GOP is already guaranteed the majority of the Virginia State House. Democrats still control the Virginia Senate by 21-19. Senate elections aren't expected until 2023. And the rising crime in New York City made a lot of headlines this year. A new report claims that Bank of America is giving its workers tips to keep the muggers at bay. NTD's Miguel Moreno reports.
We're at Bank of America Tower. Now, Bank of America is a prestigious business, so you'd expect its workers to dress nicely, maybe even lavishly. Well, a new report claims that the bank is asking its younger employees to dress down. Why? To not attract any bad attention. New York City's dealing with a crime wave. In the last 28 days, the city's seen 24% more robberies than in the same time last year. The New York Post claims Bank of America is responding to city crime. Its article says executives told young employees that wearing a Bank of America logo or dressing up could make them a target. The bank got back to us, but their statement neither confirms nor denies the newspaper's claim. It says the safety and security of our employees is a primary focus. We provide employees with a number of resources to support their security, including car service for early, late hour travel, as well as safety guidelines that are informed by our corporate security team. Outside the bank, New Yorkers appeared unfazed by the rising crime. Do you feel safe in New York City right now?
Yes, I've been living here all my life. So, you just got to know how to get around the do's and the don'ts and the who's and the who's. That's how that go.
Do you feel safe in New York?
Yes.
Do you feel safe in New York?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, why do you feel safe?
Because safety is a frame of mind.
As part of his plan to fight crime, Mayor-elect Eric Adams says he'll form a plainclothes anti-gun and gang unit. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, New York.
Manhattan District Attorney-elect Alvin Bragg discusses his plans for the future in an interview with New York Law School. What will he bring to the table? NTD's Jason Perry gives us the details.
Manhattan District Attorney-elect Alvin Bragg grew up here in Harlem in the 80s during the crack epidemic, and he said his life experiences helped prepare him for the job.
Before I was 21, I had a gun pointed at me 6 times. 3 by NYPD officers, and you didn't need to be a 1L at New York Law School to know they were unconstitutional searches. I knew that as a teenager. So 3 times at gunpoint, unconstitutional searches, but also 3 times arising from traditional public safety issues.
Bragg was previously an assistant attorney general and led a unit responsible for investigating police killings of unarmed civilians. He also commented on the controversial bail reform.
I've heard a lot of the discussion suggesting that bail reform is causing gun violence. I've yet to see, because it does not exist, the scholarship that supports that. And indeed, the NYPD's own data suggests to the contrary.
Bragg and New York City Mayor-elect Eric Adams may not see eye to eye on the controversial stop-and-frisk policy, as Adams has shown support for it.
So I know from my own work that when we look at the height of stop-and-frisk, only 0.1% of the stops from a 4-year period resulted in a conviction for a gun charge, 0.1%. And I also know as a prosecutor, those stops came at a dizzying, staggering cost to other cases because it made it so much harder to get the trust and credit from those we needed as witnesses.
Bragg is set to take over the DA office on January 1st next year. Jason Perry, NTD News, New York.
New York City is now home to the nation's first supervised drug injection sites for addicts. But what impact are they having on neighborhoods? NTD's Arian Pazdar speaks to a local business owner who tells him that fear and violence are causing some residents to leave the area.
The nation's first injection centers are both in Upper Manhattan, and one of them is just 1 block away here in East Harlem. Now, I sat down with the owner of this local business here to find out how the new center might impact his neighborhood. Mohammed told me when he first came up with the idea of opening a cafe in East Harlem, Everyone told him it was a bad idea due to all the drugs and homelessness in the area. And he does have regular encounters with addicts.
The biggest challenge is the door. You know, they come and they sort of congregate at the door, or they try to shoot up at the door. We had to clean feces. There's pee all over the place, and people would be passed out or OD'd right outside, and so we call the police every few days.
Now, critics of the safe injection center say it could attract even more drug users to the area. But the biggest problem might not even be the users, but the dealers.
We've seen them beat up some of these addicts out here, like really badly.
Mohammed says these centers should be opened in different areas to avoid creating a drug haven for addicts.
Put these people in places where they're not experiencing this, where they don't OD, go into the clinic, walk back downstairs, and the dealer is waiting for them to take care of them again.
He added that congregating so many drug users in one area also makes it hard for local businesses like his, because residents are leaving the area in search of a better neighborhood. Ariane Pastar, NTD News, New York.
The State Department said today it applauds the Women's Tennis Association for its decision to suspend tournaments in China over the treatment of tennis star Peng Shuai. The U.S. is monitoring the situation surrounding Peng Shuai, and officials say they have not seen or heard anything that eases their concerns for her well-being. Coming up, California's Attorney General sentenced 5 people involved in a multi-million-dollar retail theft scheme. Another jewelry store in California was robbed, the thieves got away, and the police are still investigating. 2 California school districts are receiving media attention for their contrasting approaches to student vaccine mandates. One district is being sued, while the other is defying the state's mandate. That and more on NTD News. The California Attorney General announced the sentencing of 5 individuals involved in organized retail crime. NTD's Eileen Ang spoke with a jewelry store owner, the victim of the most recent crime.
I'm here this morning to announce the sentencing of multiple individuals involved in what we believe to be one of the largest retail theft busts in California history.
In a press conference on Friday, California Attorney General Rob Bonta announced the sentencing of 5 defendants who pled guilty to a multi-million-dollar theft scheme targeting Bay Area retailers.
The lead defendant, Danny Luis Drago, is scheduled to be sentenced to 6 years in state prison early next year. He and members of his crime ring have pleaded guilty to felony charges including conspiracy to commit organized retail theft, receiving stolen property, money laundering, and a special allegation of the aggravated white-collar enhancement of over $500,000.
Bonta believes they have arrested the main organizers of organized retail crime in the Bay Area. He said this sentencing will serve as a warning to those who plan to participate in organized retail theft. On Thursday, a jewelry store in San Jose was another victim of smash and grab. 5 suspects entered quick service jewelry repair in Eastridge Mall with hammers and smashed the display glass. They got away with several items. Ryan Nguyen, the owner of the store, said they came at around 3 p.m. He did not want to speak on camera.
I was staying in there, and then, I was screaming for help, and I'll call them to get out.
He chased the suspects outside and tried to get the license plate number.
Nguyen told me the suspects took the jewelry and left within 20 seconds. He estimates a loss of about $80,000.
He has cuts on his hands from the glass during the process. No one was seriously injured. Nguyen said they may need to close for a few days to repair the display glass.
I was here yesterday at the mall, and then I was reading the news last night, and I heard about it, and it's really upsetting. It's really upsetting that people are going around and doing this and hurting small businesses.
Nguyen has worked there for 22 years. The jewelry store is his main source of income. The San Jose police are still investigating. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
A California school district is being sued for its student vaccine policies. However, another school district in the same county recently received media attention for a decision that defies the state's student vaccine mandate. We hear more from NTD's Cynthia Kai.
San Diego County's San Diego Unified School District is being sued over its own student vaccine mandate, created in addition to the statewide mandate. The school district plans to enroll unvaccinated students age 16 and up in independent study on January 24, 2022.
What we're arguing is that this mandate is unlawful, and we're hoping to end that for all students.
The initiative, Let Them Choose, filed a lawsuit against the school district back in October. The San Diego County Superior Court recently granted a full hearing set for December 20th. McKeeman explained that if a writ of mandate is granted at the hearing, the SDU-SD student vaccine mandate would then be invalidated. However, a different school district in the same county developed a workaround plan to allow in-person instruction to continue for unvaccinated students. Alpine Union School District Superintendent Rich Newman announced the creation of Alpine Choice Academy in a letter to parents on November 22nd.
Let Them Choose, as we understand it, what they're trying to do is make an opportunity for, if this goes all the way to the state implementing a mandate and the possibility of if the state legislator were to take personal belief exemptions out of the picture, they want students to still have an option to attend in-person education.
The school would serve at an off-campus location students who choose to remain unvaccinated. Newman told the Washington Post that the plan is believed to be a first of its kind to work around the state's mandate, adding that it's not a political statement, but reflects its moral responsibility to provide in-person learning when safe and possible. California's statewide student mandate requires all students to be vaccinated by July 2022 to continue in-person learning. NTD reached out to both school districts and the governor's office, but did not hear back by airtime. Cynthia Kai, NTD News, California.
A man who attacked a senior citizen in San Francisco returned to court on Thursday. He was previously released from jail after 7 months due to mental health issues. Some of the following footage may be disturbing. 24-year-old Eric Ramos Hernandez returned to court in San Francisco on Thursday after being released from jail on a mental health diversion, according to ABC7. Hernandez attacked an 84-year-old man in February 2020. The victim, Ron Shin Liao, suffered injuries including a blood clot in his skull. Ron was waiting in a seated walker at a bus station. Hernandez returned to court on a trespassing charge. The DA's office requested that the court terminate the mental health diversion. Demonstrators gathered at San Francisco's Hall of Justice in protest of Hernandez's release. And staying in California, in lighter news, the Toys for Tots program was started in 1947 by the U.S. Marine Corps to deliver toys to kids. Since then, over 600 million toys have been distributed. A police department in Northern California joined the effort to collect toys for the program. And NTD's David Lamb was at the toy drive.
Despite being a foggy Friday morning, members from California's Danville Police Department warmly greeted toy donors from their area for their Fill the Cruiser event.
Really, this is the easy part. The heavy lifting is done by the Marine Corps. They're the ones that organize all of this stuff. They sort the toys, they deliver them to the communities. We're more than happy to do this.
I also happen to have a son who is in active duty in the Marines, so this holds near and dear to me. This organization, I definitely want to help and help the children in need.
Ortiz organized the event and partnered with Toys for Tots and the local Costco.
Now, we love it. This is the side of police work that we absolutely love to do. It's all positive engagement. There's nothing negative about it. We get to meet a lot of people.
Now, customers are coming out and donating gifts such as this Play-Doh here for the Toys for Tots program. And the police department is saying they're hoping to fill up that cruiser over there with hundreds of gifts for Christmas time.
I mean, hey, we can call for backup. We do. I want to fill our cruiser with as many toys and books that we can and provide them to children in need, and we're excited.
Yes, very excited. I dropped a doll and clothing for a little girl, and then for a boy, it was cars and trucks and a little kit to make a road.
The first donor came early before the toy drive officially started.
I want the kids to feel excited and happy and that they're loved and cared for. I realize not every child in the community is able to get presents, so I think that this is a fun way for the community to all pull together and do something nice for all the children.
I just hope that they have a healthy Christmas and going into the new year, their families, and that things get better for their families. So Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much.
One of the police volunteers says that seeing kids smile as they open gifts on Christmas Day is well worth it. The organizer said they'll be back next week as well. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
And the NFL defeats the city of Oakland, California, in an appeals court over the Raiders football team's relocation to Las Vegas. This decision upheld a ruling from last year. NTD's Jason Blair reports.
The city of Oakland, California lost its antitrust appeal on Thursday to the National Football League over the Raiders football team's decision to move to Las Vegas in 2017, according to Reuters on Thursday. Oakland claims that the NFL's move to charge the Raiders a $378 million relocation fee, along with refusing to grow beyond 31 teams, interfered with competition. Circuit Judge A. Wallace Tashima upheld the decision. Back in 2018, when the lawsuit was first filed, the Oakland mayor tweeted, "The NFL's Billionaires Boys Club ditched Oakland out of sheer greed and left taxpayers with millions in unpaid stadium debt." The city had also commented that the league operated like a cartel that made it notably expensive for a city to host a team. Tashima, with the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco, found a large number of speculative links between Oakland's alleged injuries and the NFL's conduct. He also noted that the team could have left the city anyway, or the city might have looked for another team. Reuters reported that Tashima wrote, "Although the city has alleged antitrust injury, it has not alleged with sufficient certainty that the Raiders would have stayed in Oakland, and under what terms in a hypothetical competitive market." The Raiders now play in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, a $1.9 billion facility that opened last year. Jason Blair, NTD News, California.
Billionaire Mark Cuban just bought a whole town. He's now the owner of Mustang, Texas, located about 45 minutes south of Dallas. Cuban told the Dallas Morning News he bought it because a buddy needed to sell it. It's unclear how much the owner of the Dallas Mavericks paid for the 77 acres. In 2017, Mustang was reportedly up for sale for $4 million. Cuban didn't say what he plans to do with the tiny town of 21 people. And a pair of spotted neck otters are making themselves at home in the Oregon Zoo in Portland. While we do have otters in America, these are a special species. Their home continent is Africa. Their names are Lemmy and Leela, and they're a pair. They arrived at the zoo last month and are now exploring their home in the zoo's African rainforest habitat. They were brought to Oregon from other zoos as part of a species survival plan for the ring-necked otters. The species is listed as near threatened in Africa due to loss of habitat and invasive species. And coming up, a Chinese company decides to leave the New York Stock Exchange, giving in to pressure from Chinese authorities, and its shares plunge 20%. And over $300 million in pension funds flew out of Hong Kong in only 3 months, a 50% growth compared with the same period last year. More in just a moment here on NTD News.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell. Cancel culture has not only affected myself and MyPillow, but millions of you out there. Before all this started, I had already written in my memoir, I dedicate this book to anyone that's looking for hope. Well, right now, we're all looking for hope. I believe that my story is going to bring inspiration and hope to everyone. By the time you're done reading my book, you will believe that with God, all things are possible. To thank you all for your support, I'm offering some of my best prices ever on MyPillow products, including this exclusive bundle. You get my book and these 5 MyPillows. videos. They all have beautiful scenes and verses from the Bible, such as Isaiah 41:10. Do not fear, for I am with you. This 6-pack bundle is regularly $219. Now it's just $99.98 and free shipping with your promo code. Go to mypillow.com and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below. Thank you and God bless.
Last Friday, this guy stole a package right off my porch. Or at least that's what would have happened if I didn't have my Vivint Smart Security System. Instead, this is what really happened. System detects package. Thief walks up. System scares thief. Thief runs away. If your doorbell can't do this, you need a Vivint Smart Security System. Call 844-544-0866 today.
90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This is a battle between truth and deceit. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
Chinese ride-hailing giant DiDi will be delisting from the New York Stock Exchange. The company's shares plunged by 20% since the announcement today. It's a result of the company giving in to pressure from Chinese regulators worried about data security. The company will instead seek a listing in Hong Kong.
DiDi was already facing heat from Beijing when it decided to push ahead with its $4.4 billion IPO back in June, despite being asked to put those plans on hold. That's as authorities were investigating the company's data practices. Regulators later ordered app stores to delete 25 mobile apps run by DiDi and told the company to stop registering new users over concerns around national security. Sources, however, have told Reuters that DiDi is preparing to relaunch the apps by year's end, in anticipation of the probe wrapping up by then. DiDi shares were down over 40% on Thursday since its listing. The firm's latest move sent jitters across global markets, sparking worries over the broader impact on U.S.-China tensions as Beijing continues its wider crackdown on big tech.
And pressure on Chinese companies isn't only coming from the Chinese authorities, but also from American stock market regulators. On Thursday, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission finalized rules asking foreign companies listed in the U.S. to hand in audit books and declare whether they're owned or controlled by any foreign government. But Chinese regulators had always denied such requests. A CEO of a Hong Kong fund management company says for Chinese companies listed in the U.S., it's like walking on eggshells trying to please both sides. He added, delisting makes things simpler. And Hong Kong sees growing emigration, and departing residents are taking a huge amount of money with them. In the third quarter, the funds withdrawn from Hong Kong citizens' mandatory pension accounts rose by 50% compared with last year. Here's more.
More people seem to be leaving Hong Kong than before, and they are taking quite a bit of wealth. Hong Kong residents leaving the city for good withdrew over $300 million from their mandatory pension accounts in the third quarter, within a mere 3 months. That's an increase of over 50% from a year earlier. The Mandatory Provident Fund is a major pension fund in Hong Kong. Most employees and employers are required to pay into it monthly. Over 9,000 claims were made during the third quarter. The fund spokesperson explains these claims may not only be from locals leaving the city, but also from non-local employees who leave Hong Kong when their contracts expire, adding sometimes one person can make multiple claims. Beijing imposed a national security law in Hong Kong last year. The law makes anything Beijing regards as subversion, secession, terrorism, or collusion with foreign forces punishable by up to life in prison. The sweeping law is driving many Hong Kong residents away from the Asian financial hub, and they have taken tens of billions of dollars with them. Permanent departure claims increased by over 3,000 in the 12 months ending in September, compared to the same period the year before. A survey shows that amid the emigration wave in the last academic year, Hong Kong's secondary schools lost about 1,000 teachers. That's double the year before. How do American people view the Chinese Communist Party? For the first time ever, over half of all Americans agree that one regime is the top threat for the United States, Communist China, not Russia, nor any other country. That's a dramatic change in public opinion since 2018. According to a new survey by the Ronald Reagan Institute, 52% of Americans named China when asked which country they see as the greatest threat to the U.S., while only 14% said Russia. The concern is shared by those on the left and right. 64% of Republican respondents said China is their top concern, followed by Democrats and independents, each at 44%. In contrast, only 21% view China as the top threat in 2018, when 30% said Russia. Economic factors were the top reason for concern for both Democrats and Republicans. Republicans named the military as the second reason, while Democrats pointed to human rights abuses. Also, nearly 3/4 of all respondents said they believed it was likely the CCP virus accidentally leaked from a lab in Wuhan, China, and that China's authorities have lied about it. Against a backdrop of escalating China-Taiwan tensions this year, the number of U.S. military troops unofficially stationed in Taiwan has doubled. According to the Pentagon's Defense Manpower Data Center, the increase went from 20 personnel to 39 between December 31st last year and September 30th this year. Active duty deployments include 29 Marines, 2 Army service members, 3 from the Navy, and 5 from the Air Force. Although the U.S. did not disclose what the military personnel are doing on the island, the troops' presence there coincides with Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen confirming that American troops are on Taiwanese soil. Her verification came in an interview with CNN late October. She is the first president to give a public acknowledgement of this kind in the past 40 years. Beijing is strongly against the U.S. having troops in Taiwan, and the Chinese Foreign Ministry has previously said that it firmly opposes any form of military ties between the U.S. and Taiwan.
The next time you're running late for a Zoom meeting, a new feature may start drawing attention to the absence. The video conference software is introducing a tool called Attendance Status to make it easier for the meeting host to see who has and hasn't joined the meeting. For those folks who sign on late, their names go under a new Not Joined section right in the participants panel for everyone to see. You might be thinking, I'll just say I didn't get the invite. No such luck. Along with your name in that Not Joined section is your calendar response, meaning it's just like showing up late to an in-person meeting. The tool is still a work in progress, but users might want to think twice about being tardy. And coming up, a study conducted by a Swiss think tank suggests people should dramatically change their lifestyles. And one of the world's largest pasta makers is short in supply. Why does the Italian producer depend on wheat from North America? That and more here on NTD News. Swiss investment bank Credit Suisse is suggesting drastic changes to your lifestyle in order to reach carbon neutrality. But a French economist warns that green agenda is going to create a collectivized society and give the government more control over people's lives. NTD correspondent David Vives has the story.
Shower 3 times per week. Use the washing machine 2 times per week and eat no more than a half pound of chicken per week. Buy no more than 2 new pairs of jeans each year. According to Credit Suisse, that's how your future lifestyle will look like in order to achieve carbon neutrality and reach the goals of the Paris Climate Accord. The Swiss investment bank modeled the ideal consumption pattern for people in the West in order to create, quote, a sustainable consumer. The report says at the end of the day, it is our daily lifestyle that drives emission levels. The banking company released the report ahead of the COP26 climate summit last month. French economist and think tank founder Jean-Philippe Dersol says calculating people's carbon emissions seems to be part of the green agenda.
Following this trend, there are politicians who want to save the world and look good. So they follow some scientists saying we should kill our way of life to save the world.
World's leaders reaffirmed the Paris Climate Accord during COP26. They also reached a new agreement, the Glasgow Climate Pact, to keep global temperature rises within 1.5 degrees Celsius. Some scientists say that's required to prevent a climate catastrophe. The pact acknowledged the concept of climate justice. Del Sol says the green agenda is as political as it can get.
To me, it seems this fight to quell climate change comes from those who want Marxism to revive. We see that Marxism has failed everywhere, but they want to get it back. The goal here is to have an entirely collectivized society. What these politicians say, the only way for us to survive is for citizens to give their government all the means and power. More specifically, this means new taxes, new sets of rules.
More than 36 United Nations experts on Friday endorsed what they call an urgent call to move from promises to action on the Glasgow Climate Pact. David Vives, NTD News.
And going to Italy, pasta lovers may recognize Di Cecco, the third biggest pasta producer worldwide. But a key ingredient in their production is facing supply shortages and price hikes after extreme weather events. Export prices for durum wheat have almost doubled since the summer, leaving Di Cecco concerned. NTD's David English brings us this report.
Di Cecco is the world's third largest pasta producer. At their factory in eastern Italy, around 300 tons of pasta is produced every day. Their pasta uses durum wheat. 2/3 of the world's supplies come from Canada. Extreme heat and drought are expected to cut Canada's output to nearly 50% below 2020 levels. This has sent durum prices to 13-year highs, leaving Di Cecco concerned.
Well, actually, it has been quite difficult, especially at the beginning, because, of course, traders were just getting a position of waiting to see if what was going on in terms of price and increases were close to finish or keeping going. And so far, it's keeping going.
Di Cecco is known by millions all over the world. Founded in a small village in the mountains of Abruzzo in 1886, it's still there 135 years later. Their pasta is produced using old craft traditions and drying methods that bypass limitations imposed by weather conditions. Di Cecco uses premium durum wheat, specifically chosen to make the pasta al dente. Competition for the best grains and low forecasts for Italy's domestic durum crop add to the difficulties.
It has been hard because, of course, all pasta makers tends to get products on the market, so the demand it has been quite high, especially for a very niche of production, which is the premium grain, which actually Di Cecco requires to produce a premium pasta.
Canada's output whittled just as world durum stocks were already at a 6-year low. Several crops have seen prices jump this year due to harvest setbacks and mounting supply chain costs. But tensions in durum wheat have been particularly intense, with export prices almost doubling since June. David English, NTD News.
For the first time in its almost 280-year history, auction house Sotheby's will top $1 billion in sales. And this is not an isolated case, as sales of luxury items continue to grow. NTD's Evelyn Lee has more.
Sotheby's predicts that global sales of luxury items will top $1 billion for the first time this year. That's not only a first for the 277-year-old company, but also a record for any auction house. And this is not an isolated phenomenon. eBay is witnessing a similar trend.
We are experiencing strong growth right now, absolutely. Like, again, double digit in 2 of the luxury categories that we started focusing on, both in handbags and watches as of a year and a half ago.
Global luxury sales are expected to outdo pre-pandemic levels. The largest players like LVMH and Hermes have already made a strong recovery. And Sotheby's has auctioned off almost $1 billion in luxury items, up 50% from all of last year. So what's driving this growth?
People found the convenience of online. People found that, hey, you can find cool, rare, unique items online that you can't offline. So that's a huge part of driving growth.
That's not the only reason. According to Sotheby's, auction participants under the age of 40 have increased by 1/3. And Kamdar agrees that millennials and Gen Zers are the key drivers of this growth. For them, sustainability is a strong preference, and they often turn to pre-owned products. That means buying resale is also becoming more mainstream.
It's not only the primary market that's growing to hit over that $1+ billion for the first time this year, it's also the secondary market, and that pre-owned market is a huge catalyst for this overall growth.
And luxury categories are expanding as well. Next to jewelry and watches, now sneakers, handbags, and whiskey are added to the mix. This year reportedly saw record sales in the US and in Asia. And the number of bidders has doubled compared to 5 years ago. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
Just ahead, this Christmas tree in London is an annual gift from Norway, but it doesn't seem to be very well received this year. Some are criticizing it for being bare and asymmetrical. And Great Britain is ready for Christmas. One of London's most famous sites is gearing up for the holidays. That and more here on NTD News.
You worked hard for your money. You invest in stability for your retirement and your family's future, to build and leave them with something greater. The next unprecedented financial crisis, political misstep, or unstable government can depreciate it all away. It was called the gold standard for a reason, the financial preservation of tomorrow. Diversify your assets against inflation, market volatility, and the unknown with real money. Hedge your wealth with the purest form of money, physical gold and silver. Because any currency printed on paper can be manipulated. What's backing up your IRA? Do what you need to do right now to be prepared with the Reagan Gold Group. Visit now, rggusakit.com, or call us at 866-912-1384. Receive up to $2,500 in free silver coins and a free safe with your new precious metals IRA. Call now.
Every year, Norway sends a Christmas tree to London, thanking Britain for its support during World War II. But this year's Christmas tree gift seems to be disappointing some London residents. Let's take a look.
The Christmas tree on London's Trafalgar Square is Norway's annual gift to the UK. But some residents are feeling underwhelmed.
It looks like it's slightly leaning to one side, just slightly. Do you feel that?
Yeah.
And I just feel it's not full enough. It looks a bit sparse.
Footage and photographs show the tree has some broken branches. One side appears to have less growth than the other, though it was unclear when the damage was done.
Looks like last year's tree. A little bit miserable, I'd say. It's a little bit miserable.
The tree drew feedback on Twitter. Some users called it threadbare or half dead, but not everyone agreed.
It's beautiful, but it'd be nice to see it at night time. It's a lovely tree. It's a lovely tree. It's all that counts.
Criticism of the tree drew a diplomatic response from Norway. The mayor of Oslo said, "This is a love tree and it means a lot to us to give it to Londoners." Though it started as a thank you to the British people for their help during World War II, it is now as much about friendship, solidarity, hope for the future, and peace. She added that the tree symbolizes this, and she hopes that when the lights are turned on, the symbolic message behind the gift is what people have in mind. The Lord Mayor of Westminster also said in a statement that he knows once it is lit, the tree will, as ever, play its role in making Westminster an even more beautiful place to visit at Christmas.
And the Tower of London is ready for Christmas with nearly 50 Christmas trees scattered across the royal site. Though famous as a prison, the Tower of London played other roles in British history, including as a royal palace that housed animals. Many of the decorations include representations of animals that used to live there hundreds of years ago. NTD's Earl Rhodes has more on this.
One of London's oldest buildings is gearing up for Christmas. As well as a 22-foot Christmas tree in Tower Green, 11 other installations at the Tower of London remember animals that lived here hundreds of years ago.
So we had a zoo or a menagerie here for over 600 years, and when it was shut in 1835, all of the animals left and went to form London Zoo, so we've got a nice connection there. And so this Christmas we decided to think about some of our tower stories and bring those back, and that's why we've got these lovely animal installations for everybody to enjoy this Christmas.
The menagerie started as gifts from medieval monarchs. By the first half of the 17th century, it included leopards, pumas, lions and eagles.
And so we started the creative process by looking at what animals we had here and what were here in the past, and the amazing stories. As you can hear, the ravens are also included in the Menagerie story.
Currently home to 9 ravens, the Raven Christmas tree, set up in front of the raven's cage, features numerous reflective ornaments that the birds are known to like. A polar bear was also present at the tower and has been recreated in a metal structure. Managing Director of Lavender Green Flowers, Colin Gray and his team had just 2 days to install all the decorations and installations.
You feel a real sense of responsibility when you're dealing with something at one of the historic royal palaces. So although the lead time is short, you've still got to, there's always going to be a question as to whether you can do it. You know you're going to pull it off, but it's just how long that's going to take.
Christmas at the Tower of London runs until the 3rd of January. Earl Rhodes, NTD News.
And last night was the screening of NTD's original drama series, A Good Cop. Grace Coulter caught up with the cast and crew after the screening to get their first impressions on the show.
Thursday night was the screening of NTD's first original drama series, A Good Cop. Being a historic night for the network, it was only fitting to hold the screening somewhere historic. The Friars Club in New York City was the place, the comedy world's most famous private club. After the screening, we caught up with the actors. It was their first time seeing any of the finished product.
It was more than I could want, because it was just so beautiful to just see everybody just coincide together on screen so beautifully, and just to see it, true and just on this big screen was just breathtaking, really.
You could feel the camaraderie, you can feel the fun, the angst, the energy that was summed up every time a new person came on screen.
The actors said this being NTD's first original series made working on the show all the more special.
It feels wonderful to be a part of something that has a mission, that wants to be great, and I feel that power and that energy in the room, and it energizes me, and it makes me more critical, and it makes me more thoughtful, and it makes me more attentive, and I think that is so incredible, and I'm so grateful to it.
A Good Cop is inspired by true events. It revolves around the lives of 3 NYPD officers during the Defund the Police movement. Each officer is at a different stage of their career, and each one with a different perspective on policing.
Taylor Carrin does an incredible job of hooking the audience in the beginning of the series with her incredible performance, creating an empathy for a point of view that a lot of people normally don't share. We try to bridge the gap between the two sides of a polarizing world that we live in, and I think having her performance and having the rest of the cast kind of guide that is something worth watching.
I'm very interested in how people can find the similarities rather than find their differences, and through this medium of storytelling, I try to bring characters that feel real and that are meaningful to me, the messages and the tribulations that they experience.
A number of the cast and crew members are former police officers or come from law enforcement families. They say this brings authenticity to the show.
For me personally, actually being retired from law enforcement, it means a lot to me. First of all, when I read the script, that this was a show that's real. And it's real and it's raw, and it's showing what really happens when officers are off the clock. And it's showing a different perspective that people don't get to see.
Almost all the cast members we spoke to mentioned humanity when talking about A Good Cop. They say they hope the show can be unifying and start important conversations.
When we see a police officer, we see the uniform, and sometimes we forget there's a human being there that has a different dynamic to how he sees the world. So the more we see the human being, whether it's a doctor, a lawyer, a police officer, I think it's important that we see how much we are alike. And if we can do that, well, that's everything.
So what else can we expect to see in A Good Cop?
Pathos, emotional content, diversity, dealing with real issues that are actually happening right now. This is not generic. This is not a one-dimensional presentation. So, very critical, important themes, philosophical, sociological, spiritual, human existence, the human condition. It's all there. in A Good Cop.
The first episode of A Good Cop airs this Sunday. That's December 5th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Grace Coulter, NTD News, New York.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.